Hello and welcome. Today, we embark on a journey through one of the most compelling stories of the Bible, the lives of Elijah and Elisha. These two prophets, chosen by God, left an indelible mark on the history of Israel. Their stories are intertwined with faith, power, and divine intervention. Each moment of their lives brings a lesson, not only about the power of God, but also about the importance of trust, obedience, and persistence in faith. As we explore their lives, we will witness how their faith moved mountains and how God's hand was at work in every step. Our story begins with Elijah, a prophet called by God during one of Israel's darkest spiritual periods. In the book of 1 Kings 17, Elijah suddenly appears, without fanfare, confronting King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, who had led the people into idolatry, worshiping Baal, a false god. Elijah, alone and fearless, standing in the king's court, declaring boldly, "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word." 1 Kings 17 verse 1. This proclamation of drought was a direct challenge to Baal, the supposed god of rain and fertility. Through Elijah, God was making it clear that he alone controlled the elements, and Israel's disobedience would bring severe consequences. The king is stunned, and so begins a drought that will bring the land to its knees. Elijah's words brought about a drought that lasted for years, and during this time, God provided for him in miraculous ways. Elijah, hiding by the brook of Chariot, a man isolated from society, depending entirely on God for sustenance. Every morning and evening, ravens, creatures known for their selfish nature, brought him bread and meat. The simplicity of this act was profound. God was showing Elijah, and us today, that he can use even the most unlikely of means to provide for his children. But when the brook dried up due to the drought, God sent Elijah to Zarephath, where we witness another miracle of provision. In 1 Kings 17 verses 10 to 16, Elijah encounters a widow who is gathering sticks, preparing to bake her last meal for herself and her son. The atmosphere is heavy with despair. This widow has resigned herself to death by starvation. Yet, when Elijah asks her for a small loaf of bread, she obeys, and through this act of faith, God provides. The oil and flour in her house never run dry during the drought, illustrating the miraculous abundance that comes from trust in God's word. Not long after, tragedy struck again. The widow's son fell gravely ill and died. Elijah, moved by compassion and faith, cried out to God and stretched himself over the boy 3 times, praying for his life to return. 1 Kings 17 verses 17 to 24. God answered Elijah's prayer, and the boy was revived. This miracle marked one of the first resurrections in the Bible, symbolizing God's power over life and death. One of the most significant moments in Elijah's ministry happens in 1 Kings 18, a chapter filled with tension and drama. Elijah, standing as the lone prophet of God, challenges 450 prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. The sky is darkened, the tension in the air is palpable, and the people of Israel watch in anticipation as Elijah sets the stage for a miraculous demonstration of God's power. He challenged them to call upon their God to send fire from heaven to consume a sacrificial offering. After hours of futile prayers from the prophets of Baal, Elijah stepped forward. He prayed a simple prayer to the God of Israel, and immediately the fire of the Lord falls, consuming not only the sacrifice but the stones, the soil, and even the water in the trench around the altar. 1 Kings 18 verse 38. The people fall to the ground, proclaiming, "The Lord, He is God." It's a moment of awe and fear as the reality of God's power is made clear. However, even a man as bold and faith-filled as Elijah had his moments of doubt and fear. After this triumph on Mount Carmel, Elijah faced a threat from Queen Jezebel, a woman known for her cruelty and zeal for Baal. In 1 Kings 19 verses 1-3, Elijah flees into the wilderness, overwhelmed and exhausted. Elijah, the prophet who stood against 450 prophets of Baal, is now a man who feels utterly alone and defeated. But even here, God meets him. An angel appears to provide food and water, and with this supernatural sustenance, Elijah is strengthened for a 40-day journey to Mount Horeb, where he encounters God not in a storm or fire, but in a still, small voice. 1 Kings 19 verses 12-13. This passage is a profound reminder for all of us. God is not only present in the grand displays of his power, like the fire on Mount Carmel, but also in the quiet moments of our lives. He speaks to us in the still, small voice, reminding us that his presence is constant, even when we feel most isolated. As Elijah's ministry begins to wind down, God instructs him to anoint Elisha as his successor. From this moment on, we see a new prophet rise, ready to carry on the mantle of Elijah's work. In 2 Kings 2, Elijah's departure from this world is nothing short of miraculous. Elijah and Elisha walking together, knowing that their time is limited, they traveled to the Jordan River. There, Elijah struck the water with his cloak, and the river parted, allowing them to cross on dry ground. Elisha, filled with admiration and devotion to his mentor, boldly asks for a double portion of Elijah's spirit. Suddenly the heavens open, a chariot of fire and horses appeared, and Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha, left standing on the earth, watches in awe, but now carries with him the mantle of his mentor. Elisha's ministry is marked by an extraordinary range of miracles, each one demonstrating God's ongoing presence among his people. One of the first miracles we see is at the Jordan River, where Elisha, now carrying Elijah's mantle, strikes the water and parts the river, walking across on dry ground. 2 Kings 2 verse 14. This act, which mirrors Elijah's earlier miracle, serves as a confirmation to those watching that Elisha is now the rightful successor of Elijah's prophetic authority. As Elisha's journey continues, we see his compassionate heart in 2 Kings 4, where he encounters a widow in desperate need. This woman is on the brink of losing everything, including her sons, who are about to be taken as slaves to repay her debts. But Elisha, moved by her plight, performs a miracle that provides an abundance of oil, enough to sell and pay off her debts. The relief that must have washed over this widow, seeing her sons spared from slavery and her family restored, is a powerful testament to God's care for the vulnerable. But Elisha's ministry was not just about provision. It was also about healing and restoration. In 2 Kings 4 verses 32-35, we see the story of the Shunammite woman, a faithful supporter of Elisha, who was granted a long-awaited son through the prophet's prayers. However, tragedy strikes when the boy suddenly dies. The grief in the household is overwhelming, but Elisha, filled with faith, prays over the child and, in a miraculous display of God's power, restores him to life. This story is a powerful reminder of God's ability to bring life from the most hopeless of situations. Elisha's acts of healing are further exemplified in 2 Kings 5, where we read the story of Naaman, a commander of the Syrian army who suffers from leprosy. Naaman, despite his power and status, is humbled by his illness and seeks healing from Elisha. The prophet, however, does not offer Naaman a grand display of healing. Instead, he instructs him to wash 7 times in the Jordan River. Initially, Naaman is reluctant, expecting a more dramatic cure, but eventually, he obeys and is completely healed. This story emphasizes the importance of humility and obedience in receiving God's blessings. Naaman's healing reminds us that sometimes God's instructions may seem simple or unexpected, but they are always purposeful. One of the most awe-inspiring moments in Elisha's life occurs in 2 Kings 6, where the Aramean army surrounds the city in which Elisha and his servant are staying. The servant, upon seeing the vast army, is filled with fear, but Elisha remains calm. He prays, "Lord, open his eyes so that he may see." And suddenly the servant's eyes are opened to the spiritual realm. He sees the hills filled with horses and chariots of fire, God's heavenly army, ready to defend his servant. This moment is a reminder that what we see with our physical eyes is not all there is. God's protection surrounds us, even when we cannot perceive it. The stories of Elijah and Elisha are filled with moments of divine power, deep faith, and lessons that resonate with us today. These two prophets stood firm in their devotion to God, despite the challenges they faced, and through them, we witness God's unwavering commitment to his people. Elijah's boldness and Elisha's compassion remind us of the transformative power of faith and obedience to God. As we reflect on their lives, may we be inspired to trust in God's provision, seek his presence in every circumstance. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more about the powerful stories from the Bible, I invite to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below. God bless, and see you in the next video.